Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Level 3 umpiring course hosted by Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. My name is Abdullah Steenkamp, and I am flying solo this evening because my usual co-pilot, Tom Mokarosi, is currently in Malawi, busy officiating in matches over there. So for tonight, I am solo pilot. So the format of tonight's lecture is as follows. We will kick off with law 20, and then we'll carry on up until law number 30. In between the laws, there will be videos, and I will ask you quiz questions where you need to answer the questions by putting your answers in the chat box. So the first law that we're kicking off this evening is the dead ball law. So under the dead ball law, there are instances where the ball automatically becomes dead. So there's something or incident happen on the field of play, and according to the law, the ball automatically becomes dead. No need to call and signal dead ball, but there are some instances where it is good umpiring practice to actually call and signal dead ball to inform the players that the ball is now dead. And then there are instances where the umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. That call and signal of dead ball is important because something happened on the field, and with the call and signaling of dead ball by the umpire, it now informs the players that the ball is now dead, and anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So let's first look at when the ball automatically becomes dead. When it finally settles in the hands of the wicketkeeper or of the bowler. And you'll see in many of these instances that we're going to cover under dead ball, it can be subjective. It is the opinion of the umpire. You sometimes can have two umpires looking at the same scenario, and one would say, yes, I think the ball is dead. Others would say, I don't think the ball is dead. So it can be subjective. It is in the opinion of the umpire. So when looking at the first instance where the ball automatically becomes dead, you, the umpire, needs to decide whether you think the ball is finally settled in the hands of the wicketkeeper or it's finally settled in the hands of the bowler. That's all that the law tells us. The law then just go on further by telling us this decision is for the umpires alone to make, whether they think the ball is finally settled or not. So that's all guidance the law gives us. So there's no time frame to this, meaning if the ball is in a fielder's hands for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, or 5 seconds, or 10 seconds, then the ball is dead. No, there's no time frame. It is for you, the umpire, to decide whether you think the ball is finally settled in the hands of either the keeper or of the bowler. So there are usually clues that can help you whether the ball is finally settled or not. Things like if the keeper takes the ball and passes the ball on to first slip or second slip or gully. So the moment the keeper passes the ball on to any of the other fielders, that is a sign that the ball is finally settled and the ball is now dead. Other instances is keeper collects the ball and ball is in the keeper's hands for a few seconds. Again, there's no time frame to this. If, according to you, ball has now been long enough in the keeper's hands, you, in your opinion, that ball is now finally settled, then it is finally settled and the ball is now dead. Same principle applied to the bowler. When a boundary is scored, ball automatically dead. When a batter is dismissed, As soon as that dismissal occurs, ball automatically dead. Whether played or not, becomes trapped between bat and person or between items of clothing or equipment. In this instance, here it's good practice when this happens to call and signal dead ball to inform the players that the ball is now dead. Another instance where the ball automatically becomes dead, whether played or not, it lodges in the clothing or equipment of a batter or the clothing of an umpire. Even though the law tells us the ball automatically becomes dead, good umpiring technique, lots of players don't know the law, to actually call and signal dead ball. If you do award penalty runs when there's a player that returned without permission, so as soon as the player that returned without permission touches the ball, that ball automatically becomes dead. Later this evening, we will go through what the punishment is if a player do return onto the field of play without permission. But for now, the ball automatically becomes dead as soon as that player that returned without permission touches the ball. Again, good umpiring practice. Soon as that player touches the ball, call and signal dead ball. When there's illegal fielding, and we're going to cover illegal fielding as well later this evening. So as soon as the illegal fielding happens, ball automatically becomes dead. When the ball hits the protective helmet that was placed by the fielding side behind the keeper, as soon as that ball, while in play, hits the helmet that was placed behind the keeper, ball automatically becomes dead. And lastly, as soon as the game is done, as soon as the match is concluded, the ball then automatically becomes dead. So these are the 8 instances where the ball automatically becomes dead. There are some of them where it is good umpiring practice to actually call and signal dead ball. Lots of players don't know the law. So by calling and signaling dead ball, you informing the players that when you call it, there was an incident that happened and the ball is now dead, and anything that happens after that is irrelevant. Call of over or time. After 6 valid balls are bowled, the umpire needs to call over. But before calling over, please make sure that the ball is dead. So only once the ball is dead, now you can call over. Same principle will apply to the calling of time. The ball is also considered to be dead when it is clear to the bowler's end umpire and he or she feels that the fielding side and both batters at the wicket have ceased to regard the ball as still in play. And if that is the case, the ball is then considered to be dead. In the previous slide, we've covered when a ball is finally settled in the hands of the keeper or the bowler. When it is finally settled, that is a decision for the umpires alone to make. So now we're going to cover when the umpire to call and signal dead ball. There are 14 instances. So something happens, and the law actually tells us when this happens, either umpire to call and signal dead ball. Firstly, if either umpire decides to go and intervene if unfair play happen, before going to intervene, call and signal dead ball. Then you can go and intervene if there was unfair play. So as soon as you've called and signaled dead ball, ball dead, now anything that happens after you've uttered those words is irrelevant. Calling and signaling dead ball if there is a possible serious injury to any player or umpire. And here the emphasis is on serious injury to a player or an umpire. This can be a judgment call, but it's for you to make that judgment call. If, in your opinion, you think there's a serious injury to a player or an umpire, you need to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. So as soon as you've uttered that call, anything that happens after that is uh, irrelevant. If you do go into and decide to go consult your colleague for whatever reason, before going over to consult your partner, please first call and signal dead ball, then leave your position to consult, whether it's to consult whether a catch was taken clearly or for whatever reason. First call and signal dead ball, then go consult. Another instance where either umpire needs to call and signal dead ball, if one or both bails falls from the striker's wicket before the striker had opportunity of playing at the ball. And the emphasis here is on if one or both bails falls from the striker's wicket. The law wants either umpire to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. Nothing stopping the bowler's end umpire calling it, but usually the umpire in the best position to call this is the striker's end umpire. Because many times the bowler blocks the striker's the bowler blocks the striker blocks the bowler's end umpire's view of the stumps. So striker's end umpire is usually in the best position to call this. Umpire to call and signal dead ball if the striker is not ready for the ball and if the ball is delivered, striker needs to make no attempt to play at the ball. And also the law goes on further telling us that umpire needs to be satisfied that the striker had a good reason for not being ready and this ball not to count as one for the over. Umpire to call and signal dead ball if striker is distracted by any noise or movement or in any way while preparing to receive the delivery. This source can be in the game or outside the game. Umpire, as long as the umpire feels that the striker was distracted by any noise or movement, call and signal dead ball. Under Law 41, there are two instances where, firstly, there was a deliberate attempt to distract the striker while receiving the ball. In that instance, if there was a deliberate attempt, umpire needs to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. Also, if there was a deliberate distraction, deception, or obstruction of the batter after the ball was delivered, umpire needs to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. If at any time bowler accidentally drops the ball, call and signal dead ball. If the bowler decides to throw the ball towards the striker's end before entering his or her delivery stride, umpire needs to call and signal dead ball. So this is a throw towards the striker's end, not trying to run out the non-striker. This is a bowler before entering the delivery stride, throws the ball at the striker's end. You need to call and signal dead ball if that is the case. If for whatever reason the bowler the bowler does not deliver the ball, i.e. the ball does not leave the bowler's hand for whatever reason, you need to call and signal dead ball. Also need to call and signal dead ball while ball is still in play and you, the umpires, are satisfied that the ball cannot be recovered, you need to call and signal dead ball. Umpires needs to call and signal dead ball if the umpires decides or considers that either side has been disadvantaged by either a person, an animal, or any other object within the field of play. that is the case, you as the umpire can intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. The law uh, actually gives the umpires also the power, if they do think that if it wasn't for the intervention of a person, animal, or another object, the ball would have actually gone on and go over the boundary. The law gives the umpires the power to actually allow for the boundary and that boundary to stand. Umpire needs to call and signal dead ball if at any time the striker attempts to play the ball and the striker has no part of his or her person, whether it's grounded or raised, within the pitch. The law wants the striker to be on the pitch. The law wants uh, at least part of the person, whether grounded or raised, to be within the pitch. If the striker, for whatever reason, leaves the pitch, there's no part of his or her person within the pitch, the law wants the umpire to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. And lastly, umpire needs to call and signal dead ball if the umpire is required to do so, any other laws that's not included in the 13 above. So first question for the evening, please put your answers in the chat box. Once I'm done with my presentation, we'll we'll go through these videos. So in the chat box, question 20.1, I want you to make your decision: out, run out, or not out, dead ball. Have a look at the pics. I'll play the video again. Just look at the ball gets delivered, goes through to the keeper, in the keeper's hands. The keeper passes it to second slip, and second slip throws the wicket down. So you, the strikers and umpire, what's your decision? Another video, question 20.2. You, the umpire, are you going to give it out, hit wicket, or are you going to go not out, dead ball? Let's have a look at the clip.
It's hit his helmet, and I just this has gone. Worried about the height and whether it was a no ball, but neither of the umpires have signalled a no ball. That's hit him in the helmet, and surely over the batsman's shoulder.
Well, I can't believe this. I really can't. Now, is he in a normal stance? They're having a chat, the umpires. This is hitting fair on the side of the helmet in a normal stance. Well, boy. And back onto the stumps. The question is the height, and this is all you can consider. It's gone above shoulder height and hit him about the ear. And he's going. Adam Ferrari's on his way. They've had their chat.
Okay, so don't listen to the commentators. What I want you to look at is your answer. This is our deal wicket, or are you going to call and signal it? Next law is the no ball. There's about 17 subsections under the no ball. We're not going to go through every one of them. First subsection that we're going to cover is what happens if the bowler breaks the wicket while delivering the ball. Law tells us that either umpire to call and signal no ball if the bowler breaks the wicket at any time after the ball comes into play and before completing the stride after the delivery stride. So if the bowler breaks the wicket and it's not an attempt to run out the non-striker, if that is the case, the law wants either umpire to call and signal no ball. The law goes on further by saying any clothing or object that falls from the bowler and it falls on the wicket and breaks the wicket, either umpire also to call and signal no ball. But it must be the bowler breaking the wicket with any part of his or her body or any clothing or object falling from and falls onto the wicket. And if that is the case, either umpire to call and signal no ball. If in the scenario where a bowler is running in and delivers the ball and the wind blows the bails off, in this example, you're not going to call and signal no ball. Why? Because the law tells us if the bowler breaks the wicket with any part of his or her person or any clothing or object, then you're going to call and signal no ball. But in my second example, bowler didn't touch the wicket. It was the wind that blew off the bails at the bowler's end. So in this instance, you are not going to call and signal no ball. So what happens if a ball bounces more than once or a ball rolls along the ground? Law tells us if this is the case, when a ball bounces more than once before reaching the popping crease, umpire to call and signal no ball. Who's the best umpire to able to see this? The strikers in umpire. Strikers in's got a side-on view. Strikers in is the best umpire to make this call. So if the ball bounces more than once before reaching the popping crease, so if the second bounce or third bounce is before reaching the popping crease, either umpire to call and signal no ball, even though the strikers in umpire is in the best position to call this. Also, ball that was delivered starts rolling along the ground before reaching the popping crease. Either umpire to call and signal no ball if this is the case. Also, either umpire to call and signal no ball if the ball pitches wholly or partially off the pitch before reaching the line of the striker's wicket. And the emphasis here is on the striker's wicket, i.e. the bowling crease. So bullet point 3 is not the popping crease. Your first two bullet points speaks about the popping crease. Your third bullet point speaks about the bowling crease or the line that the striker's wicket is in. So for the ball to be no ball in bullet point 3, it needs to pitch wholly or partially off the pitch before reaching the bowling crease. If that is the case, either umpire to call and signal no ball, although in this instance your bowler's in umpire is in a good position, but your bowler's in umpire can consult strikers in to ask strikers in. Did the ball bounce before the bowling crease or was it after the bowling crease? If it was before the bowling crease, it's going to be a no ball. Ball causing the striker to leave the pitch, or if the ball comes to rest in front of the striker's wicket. What do you do? So law tells us, and if you can visualize this, if a ball that was delivered comes to a standstill, it stops, it comes to rest in front of the line of the striker's wicket. If that is the case, we're going to see now what the umpire needs to call. Or the ball that was delivered is so far from the pitch that the striker needs to leave the pitch to play at the ball. What must the umpire do? umpire needs to call and signal no ball, and immediately thereafter call and signal dead ball. So there's two calls that needs to be made here, but these calls are quickly after each other. So it's literally you call no ball, and a split second later you go dead ball. You go no ball, dead ball. That's how quickly these two calls needs to be made. So what happens if a fielder intercepts a delivery? So the ball was delivered, and the ball now makes contact with any part of a fielder's person before it's made contact with the striker's bat or person, or if it passes the striker's wicket. If this is the case, umpire needs to call and signal no ball. And this is again an instance where there's two calls. You'll call no ball, and a split second later, you need to call and signal dead ball as well. So if you can visualize this, I'll give an example to show you what is meant by a fielder intercepting a delivery. So visualize a spinner bowling, and there is a short leg fielder under the helmet, close to on the offside, close to the striker. The right arm off spinner then bowls the delivery. Delivery is a touch wide. It then lands on the striker's right foot. And from the striker's the right foot, it goes then onto the stumps. The players will appeal, but you, the umpire, you're going to intervene. But as soon as that ball strikes the foot of the short leg fielder, you are going to call no ball, dead ball. So these two calls you're going to make, and they quickly after each other. So this is just an example of when a fielder intercepts a delivery, like the short leg fielder here, and what the umpire needs to do. You can have occasions where of a single ball, there's a no ball call and a wide ball call. So what you do in those instances, the law tells us no ball is boss. If there's a no ball in a wide of the same delivery, no ball is boss. You'll go with the no ball call, and you'll signal no ball to the scorers. How can you be dismissed of a no ball? There are 9 motives dismissals in total. But when it comes to this being dismissed of a no ball, as soon as no ball gets called, doesn't matter what, whether it's a foot no ball or fielding infringement or whatever type of no ball, as soon as no ball is called, there's only 3 ways to be dismissed. And they are hit the ball twice, obstructing the field, and lastly, run out. These are the only 3 ways how you can be dismissed as soon as no ball is called. So let's look at this clip. And again in the chat box, quiz question 21.1. I want you to write down what signals the bowler's in umpire is going to make. Let's look at the clip. So in the chat, your answer should contain what signals the bowler's in umpire is going to make. Let's have a look at the clip. I'll play it again. That was quick. So you're the bowler's in umpire. Tell me in the chat box what signals you are going to make. Next up is wide ball. When it comes to the calling and signaling of a wide, so the umpire to judge delivery to be wide, and when it comes to the calling of it and the signaling of it, the umpire needs to wait until the ball passes the striker's wicket. Don't be in a hurry to call and signal wide. The striker might hit the ball, or the ball might go against the person of the striker. So the law guides us when it comes to calling and signaling of wide, to wait until the ball passes the striker's wicket. And if it passes the striker's wicket, then to call and signal wide. So that's the calling and signaling of it. But technically, according to the law, the ball is actually wide from the instant that the bowler enters his or her delivery stride, i.e., it's technically wide from the moment that back foot landed already. But when it comes to calling and signaling it, wait for the ball to pass the striker's wicket, because the striker might hit it, or it might go against the body. But technically, it's already wide as soon as that back foot landed. We know that as soon as a wide ball is bowled, it not to count as one of the over. And in the previous two slides ago, we saw how you can be dismissed of a no ball, and there are three ways. Now we're going to cover how can you be dismissed of a wide. There are four ways. What are they? Firstly, hit wicket. Secondly, obstructing the field. Thirdly, run out. And then lastly, stumped. So of the 9 modes of dismissals, as soon as wide is called, these are the only 4 modes how either batter can be dismissed as soon as wide is called. Buys and leg buys. What are the difference between the two? Let's first have a look at buys. So what is the definition according to the law when it comes to buys? There's only one condition that needs to be met when it comes to buys, or when you allow buys. And that one condition is ball should not have touched the bat or person of the striker. That's the only condition. If the ball didn't touch the bat and it didn't touch the person, and they do decide to run, you will allow those runs. Those runs are seen in the law as buys. So the only condition is should not have touched bat or person. If that is the case, and there are runs to be scored, those runs to be recorded as buys. A lot of players, including myself back in my playing days, players think when it comes to buys, there's another condition also here. There needs to be a shot. And it is not the case. We're going to see when it comes to leg buys where a condition is in place where you need to play a shot or not, whether you're going to allow leg buys or not. And we'll get to that in the next slide. But when it comes to buys, one of the conditions for buys is not for a shot to have played or not. And I'll give you 2 examples. You need to visualize the bowler delivers the ball. It's a bit wide of the striker. Striker plays at the ball, misses it completely, don't touch the bat, didn't touch any part of the person. Goes to the keeper, keeper fumbles it, goes through the keeper's legs, and the batters then run 2 before the ball gets returned to the keeper. According to the law, those to be recorded in the scorebook as buys. Another example, visualize this. Bowler delivers the ball. Striker shoulders arms, i.e. does not offer a shot. So visualize striker not offering a shot. So the ball is a bit wide of off stump. Striker decides not to offer a shot. So visualize striker shouldering arms, not offering a shot. The ball then goes past the striker. Striker didn't touch the ball with the bat, nor did the ball touch any part of the striker's person. And then further, ball then goes to the keeper then fumbles it, goes through the keeper's legs, and the batter starts to run. Lots of players, including I was guilty of this in my playing days. Players will call, no shot umpire, no shot umpire. They're not allowed to run. In this instance, they are allowed to run. Why can they run? Because ball didn't touch anything. Didn't touch bat, didn't touch any part of the person. So the law allows for these runs and it gets recorded as buys. So the only condition when it comes to buys is should not have touched the bat or the person. Nowhere here does it speak must play a shot, mustn't play a shot. Should, as long as it didn't touch the bat or person, they can run buys. No issue. We'll see in the next slide where this condition of playing a shot or not playing a shot comes in. But for buys, irrelevant whether they play a shot or not. Only condition is did it touch bat or person? If no, they can run. When it comes to leg buys, so let's see what conditions are in place for leg buys. So for leg buys, firstly, the ball needs to be delivered and then the ball strikes anywhere on the person or strikes the protective equipment of the striker. So any part of the person, arm, leg, tummy, shoulder, any part, or any part of the protective equipment that the striker's got on. So if the ball strikes it, and then let's say the ball ricochets towards fine leg, and they do decide to run, the law puts conditions of these, whether these runs can be scored or not. And let's look at the conditions when it comes to leg buys. And here it comes in where the law wants there to be a shot, to play the striker to play a shot. The law wants there to be an attempt to play at the ball with his or her bat. And then the second condition is the striker try to avoid being hit by the ball. So if these conditions are met and it hits any part of the striker's person or the protective equipment of the striker, leg buys can be scored. So just to emphasize again, this is where that no shot condition comes in. It comes in when there's leg buys to be awarded or not. So you can only score leg buys if it hits the protective equipment of the striker or any part of the person of the striker, and the striker either try to play at the ball, play the shot, or try to avoid being hit by the ball. If either of these two conditions are met, leg buys then to be awarded. If the delivery was a no ball, that no ball to count. So now we know when it comes to leg buys, what conditions needs to be met. And if they are met, leg buys then to be awarded. So when are leg buys not to be awarded? Let's have a look. So if either umpires consider that the striker did not attempt to play at the ball with his or her bat, didn't play a shot, nor did the striker try to avoid being hit by the ball. If this is the case, leg buys not to be awarded. So if there's no shot and it hits any part of the person or protective equipment, those leg buys should not be awarded. If the striker didn't try to avoid being hit by the ball, and they do run, those runs or those leg buys not to be awarded. So we've now covered for leg buys to be awarded, there are two conditions that needs to be met. There needs to be a shot, or striker needs to have tried to avoid playing at the ball. If that is the case, we can award the leg buy. For leg buys not to be awarded, if there was no shot, those leg buys shouldn't be awarded. If the striker didn't try to avoid being hit by the ball, those leg byes not to be awarded. The law goes on further. So firstly, we now know when leg bye is not to be awarded. But the law also guides us further, and they tell us that if the ball does not become dead for any other reason, umpire only to call and signal dead ball as soon as the first run is completed, or if the ball goes over the boundary, then the umpire needs to call and signal a dead ball. You'll find often every week this happens. So lots of players don't know this law or how it needs to be applied. Including myself, I played this game for many years at club level, and I thought I knew the laws, but I was ignorant of the laws in my playing days. So because what you'll find almost every single week, just to visualize the following scenario: the ball hits the pad. Let's say the batter shouldered arms, hits the pad, and ricochets to third man. Now the batter starts to run. As soon as they start to run, it happens every week. One or two or even three fielders will call, "Apa, dead ball. They're not supposed to run." It happens every single week. Yes, they are correct. We shouldn't be allowing the runs, but the law guides us when we call and signal dead ball. We, the umpires, can only call and signal dead ball upon the completion of the first run. So we first need to allow those two batters to complete that first run, and then only to call and signal dead ball. Or unless if the ball do go over the boundary, then we need to call and signal dead ball. So why do we wait for the completion of the first run? Why why can't we call and signal dead ball immediately? So the law gives the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the two batters. So it's not the fielding side's problem that the batters don't know the law, that if there was no shot or they didn't try to avoid being hit by the ball, they're not supposed to run. It's not the fielding side's problem that the batters don't know the law. So if they are stupid enough to not play a shot and do decide to run, the law gives the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of them. But there's a window period for them to run them out. That window period closes as soon as they complete their first run. Or if the ball goes over the boundary, that's when you need to call and signal dead ball. So to go back to our example, to see how practically we umpires needs to apply this law. So visualize the following: ball delivered, hits the pad of the striker with the striker not offering a shot. So striker shoulders arms, hits the pads, ricochets to third man. The the batters then decide to run. So yes, players will call, umpire, dead ball. You ignore the players because you need to wait. You first need to wait for them to complete that first run. So as they're busy running, you'll wait. You give the fielding side the opportunity. Maybe they can run out one of these batters. So you wait. As soon as they complete their first run, now on the completion of their first run, now you can intervene as the umpire. Now you'll say, dead ball, guys and girls, dead ball. Now you call and signal it. What else must the umpire do? We now know that if there was no shot and they do run, we only supposed to call it when they complete the first run. Is there anything else that we must do? Yes. We know that these leg byes is not supposed to be awarded. There was no shot played. So we need to disallow all runs. we need to return any not out batter back to their ends. We need to send the batters back. So the striker, when the ball hit the pad, not offering a shot, went to third man, they took a single. When they completed that single, then you as the umpire need to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. But now the law wants us, you need to now send the striker back to the original end, and you need to tell the non-striker to come back to the non-striker's end. So you disallow the runs, you return them back to the original ends. If there was a no ball, um, you need to signal it to the scorers as well. And then you'll award any 5-run penalty that's applicable, except if the ball should hit the protective helmet belonging to the fielding side that was placed behind the wicket keeper. I want to use an example to illustrate bullet point number 4. But before I get there, I just want to use an example of bullet point 2 that says return any not out batter back to their original ends. So in the example that I used, no one was dismissed. The ball hit the pad, striker not offering a shot. Ball then ricochets to finally go third man. They take a single. After we now know that you don't call and signal dead ball immediately. You first need to wait. You need to give the fielding side the opportunity to run out either of the batters. You only call and signal dead ball once they complete their first run. So that's the first scenario that we've covered. Let's look at another scenario where the ball hits the pad, striker not offering a shot, the ball then ricochets to short third man. Batters, they then decide to take a run. Yes, I know they're not supposed to take a run, but they do. The short third man fielder picks up the ball and sighs at the wicket keeper's end. The ball hits the stumps at the wicket keeper's end with the non-striker, let's say, a meter outside the popping crease. Huge appeal. Strikers in umpire gives the non-striker run out. Non-striker was a meter short. So in this instance, they were still busy with the first run. You're only supposed to call and signal dead ball once they complete the first run. So in my second example, they were busy with the first run. They did not complete the first run. When do batters complete their run? When the one batter gets behind the popping crease at the one end and the other batter gets behind the popping crease at the other end. In my second example, let's say yes, the striker got to behind the popping crease at the bowler's end, but the non-striker was a meter short of the popping crease. So that run was not completed. So that's why, because the run was not completed, you only call and signal dead ball once they complete that first run. This run in my second example was not completed. And because it was not completed, that run out to stand. So now the non-striker was run out at the wicket keeper's end. So now the new batter will come in. But part of your duties as the umpire, remember, you need to, first bullet point, we need to disallow that run. That run's not supposed to count. And you need to return any not out batters back to their original end. So yes, the non-striker was run out. Non-striker is busy leaving the field. The new batter is coming in. So you will send the striker back to his or her original end, i.e. the wicket keeper's end. The striker will go back to that original end. And the new batter, where will the new batter go? The new batter will go to the non-striker's end. Bullet point 4, when it comes to leg byes not to be awarded, if there's any 5 penalty runs from that ball, that will be applicable. But there is an instance, and the instance is when the ball hits the protective helmet that was placed behind the keeper. If that is the case, those penalty runs not to be awarded. I'll give you an example to illustrate bullet point number 4. Let's first go to a scenario where the ball hits the protective helmet while in play that was placed behind the fielding side. So usually what happens, let's say the ball gets hit, um, let's say the ball gets hit to the fine leg boundary. They take a sing. They two batters take a single. Finally picks up the ball, returns it to the keeper, but the throw is a bit wayward. And instead of going to the keeper, the throw being wayward, it then goes directly and hits the helmet that was placed by the fielding side behind the keeper. So usually what happened in those cases, if the ball while still in play hits the protective helmet, as soon as the ball hits the helmet, the ball automatically becomes dead. Umpire then needs to award 5 penalty runs to the batting side, runs completed to be scored, including the run in progress. If they crossed at the instant of the ball hitting the helmet, that run also to count. So that's usually if the ball hits the protective helmet while in play, we'll give the penalty runs, we'll give the completed runs, we'll give the runs uh, if they cross when the ball hits the helmet. So that's usually what happens if the ball hits the helmet. But what bullet points number 4 is trying to tell us is, in the instance where there was no shot offered, just visualize this, no shot offered, ball hits the pad, but striker shoulders arms. From the pad, it ricochets to the keeper, goes through the keeper's legs, and hits the helmet behind the keeper. So now what are we going to do? So now this is where bullet point number 4 comes in, and this is where the law tells us. In this instance, when we come to leg byes not to be awarded, in the event where leg byes not to be awarded, and if the ball should hit the protective helmet that was placed behind the keeper, those 5 penalty runs will not be credited to the batting side. We will not give those penalty runs. So usually if a ball hits the helmet, we'll give 5 penalty runs. But in the event where leg byes are not to be awarded, like in my example, batters striker shouldered arms, ricocheted from the pad through the keeper's legs, hit the helmet behind the keeper. So yes, as soon as that ball hits the helmet behind the keeper, the ball becomes automatically dead. But the law tells us those usual 5 penalty runs that you give to the batting side, in this instance, will not be given. And this is only in the instance of where leg byes are not to be awarded, and the ball then needs the protective helmet that was placed behind the fielding side. This is one instance in the law when those penalty runs are not awarded. There are 5 instances in total. This is one of them where 5 penalty runs where ball hits helmet behind that was placed behind the keeper, where those 5 penalty runs will not be given. In all other instances, we usually, if ball hits helmet while in play behind the keeper, we'll give those 5 penalty runs. But this is an example we will not give them. This is one of them. There's 5 in total. Law 24 speaks about fielder's absence. So what happens if a fielder is absent or leaves the field of play? Before I go how the law treats if a fielder leaves or a fielder is absent, if I can take you back many years ago, before this law was tightened up. So many years ago, players used to abuse these laws, especially the bowlers. The batters were guilty as well, but especially bowlers. So what happened many years ago was a bowler would bowl his or her opening spell. Let's say a fast bowler bowl a 5 over spell. That bowler would then go to the umpire saying, umpire, I need to go have treatment. Meanwhile, bowler nothing wrong with the bowler. The bowler just want to put his or her feet up. They then go off, put their feet up, sit in the change room for an hour and a bit, come back later, and when they come back, they bowl their second spell. Now they've rested for an hour, they're fresh, they can now bowl their second spell. So what players used to do is they used to fake injuries to go off. Meanwhile, they weren't injured. They were they were just go wanting to put their feet up so that they can be fresh for their second or third or fourth spell. So players was they were abusing this law. Batters did exactly the same. A side is 8 or 9 down. Um, the opening bats know that they're soon going to have to put their pads on. So the one of the opening bats would fake an injury, say, "Umpire, I'm injured. I need to go off." That player would then go off, put his or her feet up, knowing that the innings of the current batting side is almost at an end. Wants a bit of rest so that he or she can be fresh for when they're going to start their batting innings. So, because of the abusement of the lawmakers tightened this law. So, what did they do? Let's have a look at what changes they put in place. So, they did the following. They said that firstly, if a fielder do decide to go off, they firstly need to go to either of the umpires and inform the umpires, umpire, I need to go off to get treatment. And we'll see later on why this is important. Because now, yes, so they'll go to the umpire, umpire needs I need treatment. What the umpire needs to then ask is, okay, why? What's wrong? What treatment do you need? Let's say I need to have my hammy looked at. Umpire will then take out his or her notebook. In the notebook, umpire will write, let's say, Cindy going off, hamstring, and then importantly, needs to write down the time that Cindy goes off. Let's use 10:30 as an example. So that's the first step that needs to happen. Umpire needs to write down name of player going off, reason why player is going off, and importantly, the time that the player goes off. We'll see later why it's so important, especially to write down the time the player is going off. Then that player, before coming back after receiving treatment, before coming back onto the field of play, that player needs the consent of either of the umpires. So after getting treatment, to have, let's say, Cindy to have at the hamstring looked at, and then when Cindy comes back, before Cindy comes back onto the field, she needs to inform either of the umpires, get their permission, and once they give their permission, she can come back. So why it's important that the umpire needs to know when she comes back? It's important because the umpire needs to write down the time that Cindy comes or came back onto the field of play. And why is it so important that the umpires needs to know what time Cindy came back? So now we need to know in point one when Cindy left, and we need to know when she came back. So why is that important? That is important because Cindy is not allowed to bowl until she's been back on the field of play for the same amount of time that she's been off. And there is a max, and that max is 90 minutes of penalty time. And this concept in the law is called a player needs to serve penalty time before he or she can bowl or go bat again. So just to summarize again, soon as the player goes off, write down name, reason, and importantly time. practically what I do is when when the player goes off, I actually tell the player, please tell me when you come back. And we'll see later on in later slides, there is quite a severe punishment if a player comes back onto the field of play without the umpire's permission. We'll see later on what that punishment is. But for now, it's important that we need to know when the injured player comes back. Now, why is that important? Because we need to write down the time, and that amount of time that that player has been off the field, that player needs to be on the field for that same amount of time before he or she can bowl again, max 90 minutes of penalty time. Let's use one or two simple examples to illustrate how this process works. Let's use again Cindy as an example. So Cindy goes off at 10:30, and for now, just for illustrative purposes, just for round numbers, I'll just to show you how the process works. So Cindy goes off at 10:30. Cindy and umpire then write down name Cindy, hamstring, left 10:30. At 11 o'clock, Cindy stands on the boundary, waves to the umpires. Umpires, I'm ready. Can I come back on? Umpires then wave Cindy. Yes, Cindy, you can come back on. Umpires take out their notebook, look at their watches. They write down Cindy back at 11 o'clock. So Cindy was off for 30 minutes from 10:30 till 11 o'clock. So now, when can Cindy bowl? Seeing that Cindy was off for 30 minutes, Cindy needs to be on the field of play for that same amount of time that she was off. In this example, 30 minutes. So Cindy needs to first field for 30 minutes, then she's allowed to bowl. So in my example, seeing that Cindy returned at 11 o'clock, and she was off for 30 minutes, so she needs to field for 30 minutes, hence 11:30, that is when Cindy can bowl again. There is a max penalty time of 90 minutes. How does this max work? This max work as follows. Let's say Cindy leaves the field at 11 o'clock and only comes back at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So yes, Cindy was off for let's say 3-4 hours. Let's say that's about 240 minutes that Cindy was off. So must Cindy wait now for 4 hours before she can bowl again? No, the law put a max penalty time of 90 minutes. So even though Cindy was off for, let's say, 240 minutes, she only needs to serve a maximum of 90 minutes. So in my example, with Cindy being off for 4 hours, so for let's say 240 minutes, with Cindy coming back at 4 o'clock, and with a max of 90 minutes penalty time in place according to the law. I know playing condition is slightly different, but according to the law, 90 minutes of penalty time. So Cindy returning at 4 o'clock, she only needs to serve 90 minutes of penalty time. So at 17:30, Cindy can bowl again. So this is what the lawmakers did, and how they tighten up the law. So yes, they allow you to go off, no problem, but you need to serve penalty time. That same amount of time you're off, you need to be on the field before you allowed to bowl again. Penalty time in the game doesn't disappear. Penalty time gets carried forward into the next day, into the next innings of the match. Yes, it won't get carried into the next match, but if we're still in this game, those penalty time don't disappear. Lots of players think you get to day one, they go off. Let's say they owe us 60 minutes of penalty time. Now we get to day two. Lots of players think, I don't owe any more penalty time. I can bowl immediately. No, the penalty time don't disappear. You carry it forward into the next day. Similarly, into a next innings. Lots of players think, okay, I owe 60 minutes of penalty time in the first innings. Now we're in the second innings. It will disappear. No, it doesn't disappear. We carry it over into the next innings of the match. Sometimes you'll find players going on and off, on and off. We will add up all those unserved penalty time. And they can only bowl once they've served all their penalty time. Scheduled intervals. What are examples of scheduled intervals? Your drinks, your tea, your lunch, your change of innings, close of play on day one, and the start of play of day two. Also scheduled intervals. Those are examples of scheduled intervals. Scheduled intervals does not get added as unserved penalty time, nor can you subtract it as penalty time served. I'll give an example what point 5 is trying to tell us. Again, just for illustrative purposes, let's say our lunchtime is at 12 o'clock. So John leaves the field at 11:30. When we get to, we take lunch at exactly 12 o'clock. Lunch is 40 minutes, so play will restart at 12:40. So remember, John went off at 11:30. We took lunch at 12. John still wasn't on the field. Now we come back at 12:40. And as we're walking onto the field, here we see John comes with his side onto the field. And the fielding captain comes to you and asking you, when can John bowl, please, umpires? Your answer to that question is John can bowl again in 30 minutes time. So we play restart at 12:40. John can bowl at 13:10. Why only 30 minutes? Because the scheduled interval doesn't count for John or against John. You will not be adding that scheduled interval to any penalty time that John might owe us. So you will not be, when we get to 12 o'clock and John owes us 30 minutes, now there's a 40-minute break. You will not add that 40 minutes to the 30-minute penalty time that John owes us. And upon the return at 12:40, you now tell the fielding captain, fielding captain, John owes us 70 minutes. 30 minutes for when he was off from 11:30 till 12, and then 40 minutes for the interval. That adds up to 70 minutes. No, that's incorrect. The definition of penalty time is playing time that a player is not on the field. That is the time that a player needs to serve. During the lunch break, was there anyone on the field of play? No, there was no one on the field of play. No play was in progress. So you cannot be adding that to any penalty time that a player owes us. So to summarize, when it comes to scheduled interval, whether it's your tea, your lunch, your drinks, your change of innings, it does not get added as unserved penalty time, nor can you subtract it from any penalty time that a player might owe us. Next, penalty time not to be incurred. I mentioned earlier that the lawmakers tightened this law because players start to abuse it. They were they used to lie by faking injuries. There's nothing wrong with them. They just wanted to go off to put their feet up. So because we're not medical doctors, if a player comes to you and say, I'm injured, I need to have my hamstring looked at, you have to allow the player to get a treatment. You don't know whether it is true or not. So you will allow the player to go off and to get treatment. But that player then needs to, yes, can go get treatment, but they need to serve that penalty time before they can bowl again. But the lawmakers also agreed that there are instances where penalty time not to be incurred. So what are those instances? So what the lawmakers identified was there are instances where something happens and where we know a player is not trying to cheat. And I'll give a few examples to illustrate the lawmakers try to do with this subsection. So this subsection is where no penalty time needs to be served if you do decide to go off. But what needs to happen? Firstly, a player needs to suffer an external blow. And the emphasis is on external blow. And this external blow happened while play was in progress, and it happened on the field of play. I'll give you a few examples to illustrate what is meant by external blow. So first example, bowler delivers the ball wide outside off stump. The fielder, a bad striker, cuts the ball straight to Gully. Gully tries to stop it. Ball goes against Gully's hand, and let's say it splits the webbing. You see blood coming from the webbing of the Gully's right hand. Gully asks you, can I go off to have this fix? Yeah, of course, you'll allow the Gully fielder to go off. So let's say this happened at 10:30. So the Gully fielder will then go off, go get treatment on the split webbing, have it fixed. And let's say that injured fielder came back at 11 o'clock. So that fielder was off for 30 minutes. So now in this instance, the law identifies that there was an external blow, and the external blow was the ball that went against the hand. And this happened while play was in progress. So we, the umpires, so everyone saw it happening, where the ball went against the hand, and then the player had to leave to get treatment. So this is not now a player trying to play the system here, trying to go put their feet up. This is now an external blow that we saw happening. So in this instance, where the player was off for 30 minutes, so when the player returns at 11 o'clock, captain will ask you, when can the player bowl? You will tell the captain, player can bowl immediately. And the reason for that is because of the external blow that happened, ball that went against the hand. But all the law wants is for there to be an external blow. And it doesn't necessarily have to be blood involved. Initially, I thought there has to be blood. No, not always the case. All that needs to happen is an external blow. You can have a scenario where, let's say, the ball gets hit straight back at the bowler by the striker. The bowler puts out the hand, try to feel the ball. The hand then went against, let's say, the index finger. The bowler then look at the index finger. Bowler then asks you, umpire, ball hit my index finger. Can I quickly go off to get some ice on it? Another example of an external blow, and in this case there's no blood involved, but the ball went against the index finger. So that's an example of an external blow. Player left the field, and let's say that player was off for 15 minutes. Upon return, no penalty time to be served because of the external blow. Last example, doesn't always have to be blood involved. You can have an instance where, let's say, striker hooks at the ball goes in the air close to mid-off. Bowler and the mid-off fielder converge on the ball, both trying to catch the ball. As they're both trying to catch the ball, they run into each other. And let's say the middle fielder goes down. Middle fielder then asks you, umpire, can I quickly go off to get treatment on my neck or shoulder, whatever? I ran into the bowler. Yes, you'll allow the fielder to go off to get treatment. And let's say that fielder was off for 20 minutes. And in this instance, no penalty time to be served by that fielder. Why? Because of the external blow that happened. Two fielders running into each other, external blow, no penalty time to be served. Second instance where no penalty time to be served, if a player is absent for a wholly acceptable reason. But it needs to be a wholly acceptable reason. And if this is the case, you'll allow the player not to incur any penalty time. I'll give you an actual example that happens every week in provincial cricket in South Africa. You'll find many a student playing provincial cricket, and when it do come to exam times, especially the exams at the end of the year, so we have 4-day cricket in South Africa, mostly being played from a Thursday to a Sunday, and close to the end of the year, these students needs to write exams, and they typically write it on a Saturday morning. So what will happen? These students, they usually get a letter from the tertiary institution informing Cricket South Africa that player X is writing an exam on this particular Saturday from 9 to 12. So now player X being away from the game on the Saturday, let's say the player rocks up there at 1 o'clock. So player uh, not on the field for more than 2 hours. So upon return, when that player gets to the field and is now ready to take the field, the captain comes and asks you, when can my player bowl? You will tell the captain, in this instance, your player can bowl immediately. Why? Your player was not at the ground for a wholly acceptable reason, i.e. wrote an official exam the morning. So your player on the return don't need to serve any penalty time, can bowl immediately. But it needs to be a wholly acceptable reason. Earlier I mentioned why it's important for a player to inform the umpire when he or she is returning, when they do after receiving treatment, coming back onto the field of play. Why it's so important for us to know when they're coming back. We know it's important for us to calculate how much penalty time they owe us. But you'll be amazed. Even, I mean, every time you can tell a player, you are going off now to get treatment. Please, when you come back, please tell me when you're coming back. You can tell the player that, but often, lots of them, they don't tell you when they're coming back. And we'll see now, there's quite a stiff punishment for when a player do comes back without informing the umpire. And let's have a look at what this punishment is. So if a player do come back onto the field of play without informing the umpire, for whatever reason, sometimes you'll find they'll do the switch at fine leg or third man. I mean, you, the umpires, we looking at at play in the middle. I mean, we don't have eyes at our, at back of our heads as well. So sometimes they do make the swap during the over while there's at a third man or fine leg, or often happens they do it during there's a drinks break, and they'll make the swap without informing the umpires. That's why it's good umpiring technique. If the technique after every drinks break or interval before you restart, just ask the fielding captain, is the player that went off, is he or she back? Is they not back, or is there any other players that's not on? Just to make sure that the all the fielders is on the field of play. But to come back to the punishment, so the player returning without permission now snuck onto the field at fine leg without informing the umpires. So as soon as that player touches the ball, now this I'm now referring to the player that came back onto the field without the umpire's permission. So as soon as that player touches the ball immediately becomes dead as soon as that player touches the ball. Further punishment, 5 penalty runs to the batting side. More punishment, runs completed by the batter to be scored together with a run in progress if they cross when the ball became dead. Ball not to count as one for the over. And you, the umpires, needs to inform everyone. You inform the batters, you inform the fielding captain, you inform the batting captain when possible. And according to the law, you need to report this to the governing body of cricket for that particular competition. So you can see fairly harsh punishment um, for a player that came back after receiving treatment, didn't inform the umpire that UC is back, and this is the punishment. So as soon as they touch the ball, from that moment the ball uh, becomes dead. So as soon as they touch it, the ball becomes dead. Even if they pick it up, throw it in, uh, um, let's say a batter might be short of the ground and the keeper takes off the bells with a non-striker, let's say half a meter outside the crease, that run out do not count. Why will it not count? Is because the ball is dead. The ball automatically dead as soon as that player that returned without permission touched that ball automatically dead. We mentioned we've covered now fielders, and we've covered we've covered penalty time that fielders needs to serve before they are allowed to bowl again. What about batters? And I've mentioned earlier, batters also try to uh, um, play the system by wanting to go off to put their feet up. So when it comes to a batter, batters also needs to serve any unserved penalty time. An opening bat cannot be going off the field close to the end of the innings, put their feet up and think when the inning starts they can open the batting. If they were off for 50 minutes, they need to wait 50 minutes before they can bat again. So as soon as that inning starts, now the clock will tick. And we need to wait 50 minutes before that opening bat can bat if he or she was off for 50 minutes. But there is a but. And what is that but? The law allows for a player, even if a player still has unserved penalty time, if a side is 5 wickets down, that player can bat as soon as the side is 5 wickets down. I'll use an example to illustrate what the law is trying to tell us. So in my first example, I mentioned if an opening bat is off for 50 minutes close to the end of the innings, that opening bat needs to wait 50 minutes before he or she can bat again. As soon as that inning starts, that's when the clock starts. I need to wait 50 minutes. But in the case where, and let's say the batting side loses 5 quick wickets, let's say the opening bowler takes a hat-trick in the first over. So now after over 1, the side is 3 down. Over 2, the bowler number 2 takes 2 in the over. So after 2 overs, and we've hardly played 10 minutes, let's just say for argument's sake we've played 10 minutes. So after 2 overs, we've played 10 minutes, and the side is 2 runs for the loss of 5 wickets. So in this instance, so remember our opening bat owes us 50 minutes. So he has to wait 50 minutes before he can bat. But in this example, we're 10 minutes into the innings, so there's still 40 minutes left for the opening bat to wait. But now the law allows for this opening bat to come back after 5 wickets is down. But it must be 5 wickets down. And if that is the case, in my example, the opening bat can come in at number 7. Let's go through 2 examples just to show you how the concept of penalty time works. So Paul gets injured at 10:48. He injures his groin. Physio runs on. Paul gets a bit of treatment. Physio then tells him, I think you need to come off. Let me treat you in the physio room. Paul then leaves the field at 10:50. Then in the question they also tell you there's a 4-minute drinks break from 10 past 11 till 14 minutes past 11. Paul comes back at 11:40. We take lunch at 12:20, and we know lunch is 40 minutes. So if we took lunch at 12:20, first ball after lunch will be bowled at 1300 hours. So as we walk onto the field 1300 hours to start the first over after lunch, the fielding captain throws the ball to Paul. So now, what are you going to do? Is Paul allowed to bowl or not allowed to bowl? So when it comes to these penalty time questions, break them up into smaller pieces. So every time something happens, we calculate how much penalty time the injured player owes us. And let's go through the answer and I'll show you what I mean. Firstly, when does Paul's penalty time starts? It only starts at 10:50. It only starts when Paul leaves the field. Yes, Paul got injured at 10:48. But he only left at 10:50. So that 2 minutes from 10:48 till 10:50, while Paul was getting treatment by the physio, that 2 minutes is seen as allowances or extenuating circumstances, and we'll take that into account when we do the overhead calculation for the fielding team. But what is important in terms of and we know Paul needs to serve penalty time. As soon as someone leaves, they need to serve penalty time. When does the clock start? Clock starts when you leave the field, not when you get injured, when you leave the field of play. So Paul left at 10:50. Then what happened? Then Paul returned at 11:40. And also, please note, they tell us there's a 4-minute drinks break that took place at 11:10. So Paul left at 10:50 and Paul returned at 11:40. So now Paul was off the field for 50 minutes. But I've just mentioned it. There was a 4-minute drinks break from 11:10 till 11:14. And I mentioned earlier that a scheduled interval doesn't count for or against the injured player. So you need to take off that 4-minute drinks break from the total time that Paul was off. And that's how I got 46 minutes. So when Paul returned at 11:40, he owed us 46 minutes, 46. And how did I get to 46? Now my 50 minutes, that was the total time that Paul was off. But we know there was a drinks break of 4 minutes, so I need to take off that drinks break. So now Paul, he returned at 11:40. We will then tell Paul, you owe us 46 minutes of penalty time when you return at 11:40. So now lunch gets taken at 12:20. So as soon as something happens, whether it's a lunch interval or a rain interruption or a tea interval, or Paul goes off or Paul comes back, soon as something happens, calculate how much penalty time the person owes us. So in this instance, Paul returned at 11:40. We know he owes us 46 minutes. Then we took lunch at 12:20. So as the players are walking off the field, you take out your notebook. You say lunch taken at 12:20. But we know that Paul was on the field for 40 minutes from 11:40 till 12:20. So what must we do with this 40 minutes? This is time that Paul was on the field of play. So that 40 minutes needs to be subtracted from the total penalty time that Paul owes us. So in total, when Paul returned at 11:40, he owed us 46 minutes. So if we remove the 40 minutes that Paul was on the field, when the lunch interval started, Paul owes us 6 minutes of penalty time. So that's at 12:20. We know there's a 40-minute lunch interval till 1300 hours, and this being a scheduled interval doesn't count for or against Paul, meaning you will not add this 40 minutes to any penalty time that Paul owes us, because the definition of penalty time is playing time that the player is not on the field. During lunch, there's no one on the field. So you will tell the fielding captain that Paul still owes us 6 minutes. So he can only bowl at 13:06. So again, just to summarize with these penalty time questions, and yes, in the exams, they love giving penalty time questions. Break it up into smaller pieces. Every time something happens, calculate how much penalty time the injured player owes us. Soon as the player goes off, make a note. Player comes back on, make a note, calculate penalty time. Take drinks breaks into account. Now, there was a lunch break. As soon as the lunch break starts, calculate how much penalty time a player owes. As soon as the player goes off again, calculate how much penalty time. Every time, and that's how you, piece by piece, and that's how you keep track of where a player is and how much penalty time that player owes you. If you're going to try to do everything at once, especially if a player goes off multiple times, you're going to confuse yourself. Break it up into smaller pieces. Second example, John pulls the hammy at 3 o'clock and he leaves the field. So what we do, we take down John, name, hamstring, left at 3 o'clock. T is 15:20. John only returns at 15:50. At 16:10 there's a declaration, and now the batting captain wants to know when can John bat. Again, break it up into smaller pieces. With John leaving at 3 o'clock, and we know T is at 15:20. So at the T interval, how much penalty time does John owe us? 20 minutes of penalty time. From 3 o'clock till 15:20, John owes us 20 minutes. So now we're at T. We're happy. Next. So we know T is 20 minutes. So our tea break will be from 15:20 till 15:40. So play will restart after tea at 15:40. We know tea is a scheduled interval, doesn't count for or against John. You will not add it to the penalty time that John owes. So at 15:20 when tea started, John owes us 20 minutes. At 15:40 when the tea ended, John still owes us 20 minutes. But they tell us John only returns at 15:50. And remember, play started or restarted after tea at 15:40. So the time between 15:40 and 15:50, that was 10 minutes that John was not on the field of play. So play was in progress. John wasn't there. So that's penalty time. So what must happen to this 10 minutes that John wasn't on the field? We need to add it to the other penalty time that John owes us. So John owed us 20 minutes. So we will add it to the 10 minutes. We will add this 10 minutes to the 20 minutes that John owes us. So in total, John owes us 30 minutes of penalty time when he returns at 15:50. So now John came back at 15:50. And then they tell us at 16:10, there's a declaration. So again, I said to you, as soon as something happens, now there's a declaration. So because there was a declaration at 16:10, and we know the change of innings interval is 10 minutes. So from 16:10 till 16:20, there will be a change of innings interval. Again, change of innings is a scheduled break. We will not add it or subtract it from any penalty time that John owes us. So the declaration happened at 16:10. So now calculate how much penalty time John owes us at 16:10. So seeing that John returned at 15:50 and he's back at 16:10, that's 20 minutes. So he was on the field for 20 minutes. So he owed us 30 minutes in total. He was on the field for 20 minutes. So if I take the 20 off the 30, so at 16:10 when the declaration came, John owed us 10 minutes. So now the question is, when can John bat? John need to wait 10 minutes, or if the side's 5 wickets down. If they can take 5 wickets in 10 minutes, I doubt it. Um, so with the innings of the new side starting at 16:20, so John can now bat at either 16:30 or 5 wickets down. Law 28 covers the fielder. And we're going to focus in particular on fielding the ball. What are you allowed to do when fielding the ball? How can you field the ball? What you're not allowed to do. And if you do field the law and it contravenes the law, what is the punishment? So let's have a look at what is a fielder allowed to do when fielding the ball. The law allows the fielder to field the ball with any part of his or her person. Hands, foot, knee, body, any part of the person, no problem. But, there is a but, if the fielder uses any other part of his or her person to field the ball, and we'll see in the picture in the next slide, where a fielder uses a cap or extend his or her clothing and uses that to field the ball, or throw a cap at the ball, or use a cap, or you throw a jersey at the ball, or you take your jersey and try to catch the ball, that is not allowed. You're not allowed to extend your clothing to field the ball. You're not allowed to willfully discard a piece of clothing or equipment or any other object, and if it then makes contact with the ball, that is seen as illegal fielding, and we'll see the punishment in the next slide. So to summarize, fielder to field with ball with any part of his or her person. But what the law don't want is, if you use any other than fielding with your person, and we'll see in the next slide where a fielder uses a cap, you're not allowed to extend your clothing to field the ball. You're not allowed to willfully discard a piece of clothing or equipment. So what is mean by this willfully discarding a piece of clothing or equipment? If, well, let's say you have a short leg fielder under the helmet, the ball gets played to let's say to the square leg, to square leg inside the circle, or let's say to the square leg boundary, the short leg fielder then willfully takes off the helmet, throws it onto the ground to make it easier for him or her to run to get to the ball. So that's an example of the short leg fielder willfully taking off that helmet, throwing it on the ground, or willfully taking off a cap or a floppy, throwing it on the ground to make it easier to run towards the ball. So if there was a willful discardment of any clothing or equipment, and now that clothing or equipment lies on the floor, now the fielder picks up the ball close to the square leg boundary, throws it in, and as the fielder throws it in, it lands on the um, or touches the helmet that the fielder threw on the field, or it lands, or it touches the piece, the floppy hat, or the hat that the fielder willfully put on the field. Law doesn't like that. There's a punishment for that. That's illegal fielding, and we'll see the punishment in 2 slides time. But only if a fielder willfully discards a piece of clothing or equipment. If the piece of clothing or equipment accidentally fell from the fielder's person, i.e., and you often see it, fielder's got a hat or a floppy on, and as they run to chase the ball, the wind blows the floppy off. Or helmet on, as they're running, the helmet accidentally falls off. These are examples, and the key word is, and you need to look at the situation, is did the clothing or equipment accidentally fall off the fielder, or was it willfully discarded? If it was willfully discarded, willfully took off, willfully took the cap off and threw it on the ground or the helmet, or while in the running, the helmet fell off, or cap or floppy fell off. If accidentally, the law say no issue with it. If willfully, if clothing or equipment was willfully discarded, now there's a punishment, and we'll see in 2 slides time what the punishment is. So this is an example of, this is now illegal fielding. Why? Player using a cap to field the ball. So let's go to the punishment. What's the punishment for illegal fielding? Firstly, as soon as illegal fielding happens, like this, as soon as the ball touches that cap, the ball automatically becomes dead. Or the helmet was willfully discarded on the or the cap was willfully discarded as the throw came in, landed on the cap. As soon as the ball lands on that cap, the ball automatically becomes dead. Then, if there was a no ball or wide, that to stand. Any runs completed by the batters to count, including the run in progress if they crossed at the instant of the offence, that also to be scored. Further punishment, this ball not to count as one for the over. Also, you'll see more punishment, 5 penalty runs to the batting side. And we will inform everyone, captain of the fielding side, batters, batting captain, and according to the law, we need to report this to the governing body. So you can see fairly strict punishment if illegal fielding happens. But importantly, when illegal fielding happens, the ball immediately becomes dead from that instant. Anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So as soon as, let's say the helmet was willfully discarded, now the throw comes in, it hits the helmet and ricochets from the helmet, and let's say goes to the third man boundary, over the boundary. That boundary will not count. Why? Because as soon as that ball hits that helmet, the ball automatically becomes dead. Let's say the ball hits the helmet, and from the helmet it goes onto the stumps with the batter short of the ground. The fielding side is going to appeal. You're going to say, guys, sorry, fielder's not out. Why? Because as soon as the ball hit that helmet, the ball automatically became dead. Anything that happens after that is irrelevant. That's why the boundary won't count. The run out won't count. But what will count is 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Completed runs will count. And the run in progress if they crossed when the ball or when the illegal fielding happened. When it comes to movement by fielders, what is allowed and what is not allowed? There's only 3 things that is allowed. Anything else is unfair according to the law. So any movement by any fielder, as soon as that ball comes into play, the law sees it as unfair except in the following 3 instances. The law allows a fielder to make minor adjustments to his or her stance or position in relation to the striker's wicket. Minor adjustments. Secondly, you are allowed to move towards the striker. But there is a but. If that movement towards the striker significantly change your position, if you do change positions, that is also not allowed. Example of this, excuse me, let's say you're mid off on the boundary. As the bowler is running in, you're walking in with the bowler. And when that ball gets released, you are at mid off. So from mid off on the boundary, when the bowler ran in, you ended up on mid off. You've changed your position as a fielder. That's just one example I'm using. All you need to look at is, did the fielder change their position? If yes, that movement is not allowed. But the fielder is allowed to move towards the striker. That's why moving away from the striker is not allowed. Left or right is not allowed. Backwards is also not allowed. You're only allowed to move towards, as long as that does not significantly change the position of the fielder. And then lastly, fielder is allowed to move in response to the stroke that the striker is playing. If as soon as the striker shows that he or she is going to, let's say, play the lap sweep, that fielder can start moving. But they need to wait till you see the intent to play the lap sweep. As soon as the intent is there, as soon as they show the intent, you can then, or the law allows the fielder to move. So these are the only three instances where the law allows the fielder to move. So what happens if there is unfair movement by the fielder? The punishment is as follows. As soon as you see the unfair movement, you need to call and signal dead ball. There's further punishment. If there was a wide or noble, that to count 5 penalty runs to the batting side for unfair movement by a fielder. You'll inform the fielding captain why you've given this 5 penalty runs, why you're taking this action. You'll inform the batters and, when possible, the batting captain, and then, according to the law, report this to the governing body of cricket for that competition. Two more laws before I'm going to open the floor for Q&A. The wicket is down. Let's look at a wicket when the wicket. Let's look at a video to tell us when the wicket is down.
The wicket is down. The wicket is put down when one or both bails are removed from the top of the stumps, or a stump is struck out of the ground. The situation can be brought about in the following ways: by the ball, by the batsman's bat, by the batsman's bat if he or she lets go of it, or even by some flying part of a bat if it breaks, by the batsman's clothing or body, or some part of his or her equipment falling off, by a fielder with his or her hand or arm, providing the same hand is holding the ball. If the bail merely bounces and comes to rest back on the stumps, then that is not out. The wicket is down at the precise moment that both ends of either bail are removed from the stumps. Right about now. Should you have further questions on this tricky subject, such as how to put the wicket down when one or both bails have already been removed, head over to Law 29 in MCC's The Laws of Cricket.
So a few pics to show you how to put the wicket down. If in the example, and this is the example where while the ball was still in play, let's say the wind blew the bails off. This is not the example where the bails was taken off by the umpires due to high winds. Then a different section of the law kicks in. But this particular law and how to interpret it is and use the example of, while the ball was in play, the wind blew down the bails. So how do you put the wicket down then? This is the correct way to put the wicket down. Stump in one hand, ball, and at the same time you remove the stump. This is the correct way of putting the wicket down. This is the incorrect way of putting the wicket down. This is how I put the wicket down when I played club cricket for many years. We, the players, we didn't know. We thought this was the correct way, but not the correct way. This is the correct way. Ball hands, thumbs, everything together, and then remove the stump. Is this a complete removal? The law tells us all that needs to happen is the bail needs to be removed from the top of the stumps. Is this bail removed from the top of the stumps? Yes, it is. That's why this is a complete removal. Sometimes only one bail falls off. What happens if only one is on the ground? How do you put the wicket down? Do you need to pull out a stump like we saw a few slides ago? No, you don't. If there's still one bail on the stumps, to put the wicket down, you only need to remove the other bail. Let's look at this scenario, and again in the chat box, I want you to put down question 29.1. Batter out or not out? Is the wicket down? Have a look.
Oh, good ball. Good appeal from deep cover from Tricky. Well, amazing. The bail is dislodged onto the top of the stumps. Umpires had a little chat and decided it's not out.
Last law that I'm covering this evening. Batter out of his or her ground. Let's look at a video.
Batsman out of his or her ground. When a batsman is out of his or her ground, he or she risks being stumped or run out. So when is a batsman out of his or her ground? According to Law 30, a batsman shall be considered to be out of his or her ground unless the bat he or she is holding or some part of the batsman's person is grounded behind the popping crease at that end. Here, for example, the bat is on the crease marking, but not behind it, which means the batsman is most definitely out. But would the batsman be out now? Both the bat and the batsman are over the line, but neither the bat nor any part of the batsman's person is grounded, i.e. in contact with the ground. So, yes, that's out again. This being cricket, there is an exception to this part of the law. If a batsman, who must be running or diving, has already made his or her ground, either with the bat or any part of the body, but subsequently loses contact with the ground while continuing his or her forward momentum as the wicket is put down, he or she will be not out. Next question, and this can be a bit of a headache, what constitutes each batsman's ground? Well, when one batsman is in a ground, i.e. grounded behind a popping crease, then the ground at the other end belongs to the other batsman. If neither is in his or her ground, for example when they are both running between wickets or even stationary, each ground belongs to the batsman who is nearest to it. If both batsmen are level, then where they were before drawing level is the deciding factor. Of course, this being cricket, there are further delightful complications, such as two batsmen in the same ground, or three when you have a striker with a runner. But never fear, all mental anguish will clear with a little quiet meditation and reference to Law 30 in the Blue Book.
So when it comes to the position of the non-striker, where must the non-striker stand? The law actually guides us by telling us in 99% of the cases, non-striker to stand on the opposite side of the wicket to that from which the ball is delivered. So if the bowler is right arm over, the non-striker needs to stand on the leg side. So the law guides us, that's where the non-striker needs to stand, opposite side. But the law also allows, if there is a request by the non-striker to stand on the same side that the bowler is bowling, if the umpire is satisfied, there's a good enough reason, and umpire is happy that the non-striker stand on the same side that the bowler is bowling, the law allows for that, but the umpire needs to grant, needs to give permission for the non-striker to stand on the same side that the bowler is standing. The last of our quiz questions this evening. Write in the chat box, question 30.1. Is this out or not out? Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, that's all that I'm covering for this evening. I am, before I open the floor for Q&A, I am going to the chat box. I'm going to have a look at the questions, and we're going to answer the questions in the chat box, the comments. After I've gone through the chat box, I'm then going to open the floor for any questions. So the first quiz question was whether it's dead ball or not, and it was the ball that was delivered. It then went to the keeper, took the ball. Keeper then passed the ball to second slip, and then second slip threw the ball at the stumps, dislodging the ball, putting the wicket down, and the striker has nothing grounded behind the popping crease. So in that scenario, the correct answer is dead ball. Why is it a dead? Why is not out and dead ball? Because the ball is finally settled in the hands of the keeper. As soon as the keeper tosses the ball to, whether it's first slip, second slip, gully, as soon as the keeper tosses it, the ball is then finally settled, or the interpretation is that the ball is finally settled. Hence, and we've covered it under Law 20, as soon as the ball is finally settled, the ball is automatically dead. So yeah, I see most of you said dead ball. Then the next was the mid wicket scenario. I know the commentators were speaking about no ball, and they were bringing some playing conditions in, but what I wanted you to focus on is whether you're going to give the batter out not out, or you're going to give the batter out hit wicket. So you're going to go not out dead ball, or you're going to go out hit wicket. So now let's see, what does the law tell us, and we get guided by the law. When it comes to umpire calling and signaling dead ball, the criteria that you need to use in this instance is possible serious injury to any player or umpire. So looking at the clip, you need to ask yourself, is there a possible serious injury to the batter? If you look at the footage, looking at Adam Perori's reaction, It can be a judgment call. I mentioned earlier some of these dead ball calls can be call. You'll have one umpire that looks at it that will say, I think that is a serious injury. I need to intervene. I'll call and signal dead ball because I think it's a serious injury. I bet you there's a few people that looked at it that would say no. I don't think that's a serious injury. If you look at Perori's reaction, Perori looked quite fine, and and the interpretation of some umpires would say, yeah, I think Perori is fine. I don't think that's a serious injury, so I'll allow it. I won't call and signal dead ball, and I will allow the hit wicket to stand. So again, it's now up for interpretation. So when you're looking at it, you need to ask yourself the question: do you think that is a possible serious injury to Adam? If yes, dead ball, not out. Not a serious injury, the hit wicket then to stand. So there's no right or wrong here. It's you need to look at it and what's your opinion as the umpire. I'm going through the chat box. The next video was the signals that the umpires are going to make. It was where the spinner bowled the ball, it bounced a few times, it went off the pitch. The batter then also left the pitch to go play at the ball. So what is the correct signals there to make? The two correct signals are no ball and a split second later, dead ball. Okay, why no ball? The ball bounced more than once before reaching the popping crease. The ball bounced about 2 or 3 times. Eventually, it went off the pitch. Then, what did the striker do? The striker left the pitch to go play at the ball. So as soon as the striker left the pitch, the law wants you to call dead ball. So this is a case of no ball, dead ball. Going further, I'm first going to cover the quiz questions, and then I'm going to come to any questions relating to the content. Just give me a second. So quiz question 29 was about the bails landing on top of the stumps. Is that out? Is it not out? What does the law tell us? Bail needs to be completely removed from the top of the stumps. In this instance, yes, the bail was out the groove, but where did it land? It landed on top of the stumps. So is that completely removed from the top of the stumps? No, it's not. Hence, the correct answer is batter is not out, bail not completely removed from the top of the stumps. So wicket is not down. And then lastly, it was the picture where the batter was standing with his feet outside the crease, but the bat was inside the crease, but leaning against his leg. So now the question, and then the keeper took off the belts. So now the question is that out or is it not out? So what does the law say? The correct answer is that is out. Why is it out? The law wants the keeper, the batter, to hold the bat in the hand. And if your bat is held in the hand and the bat is then behind the popping crease when the wicket is put down, that will then be not out. But because this bat is not held in the batter's hand, it's resting against his leg. That's why this scenario, the correct answer is out. Bat needs to be held in your hand, and then holding the bat, put behind the popping crease. Then the batters made good take around. Then it would be not out. But because this bat is not held in the hand, correct answer is out. Okay, so we've answered all the questions. I'm going back in the chat box, and I'm going to answer any questions in the chat box. Just give me a second. I'm scrolling down. So Vikram asked a question about buys, and he's saying for a boundary 6 to be given, it needs to come off the bat. Yes, Vikram, that is the law is quite clear on it. You can only score a boundary 6 if it comes off the bat. If it comes off anywhere else, anywhere of the person or your protective equipment, and it goes on the full over the boundary, it will be considered as 4 leg buys. You can only score leg buys, boundary 6, if it came off the bat. So in the scenario where the bowler bowls a short ball, batter ducks, try to avoid being hit by the ball. The ball then hits the helmet, the top of the helmet, and from the helmet it ricochets right over the boundary behind the keeper on the full over the boundary. That will be boundary 4. Yes, it went on the full over the boundary, but you can only score boundary 6 if it came off the bat. Then you also asked the question, can we have a situation where there's 6 legs buys? Yes, it is possible. Where is it possible? Vikram, overthrows. So you technically you can have 6 leg buys, but it can only happen in overthrows. But in your scenario, and what I'm thinking you trying to say, if it goes off, let's say the person, and it goes on the full, unfortunately, it will always be 4 leg buys. But 6 leg buys technically can be scored if there's overthrows involved. Hits the pad, you then run, you cross on the second, now the throw comes in, misses the stumps, goes over the boundary. So yes, the shot was played. Because it didn't hit the bat, you cannot give runs to the scorer, but those runs will be recorded as 6 leg buys. Okay, next question was from Renier. What if the fielder that left the field of play for some time comes back on and start playing without the consent of the umpires? The umpires doesn't know that she is back on the field. So Renier, so practically how we handle, and this happens quite often. You can tell players, please tell me when you're back, but I don't know, for some reason they don't. So the law is quite strict or clear when it comes to, if a fielder does not have your permission to be back on the field, the law wants a fielder to tell you, I am back. And if that fielder does not tell you that he or she is back, and as soon as they touches the ball, you can go into action by ball become dead, 5 penalty runs to completed the runs to count, including run in progress. If they crossed, ball not to count is one for the over. So yes, that is the punishment. Practically, and this is how I handle it on the field. A lot of players don't know the law. They don't know the serious punishment or the punishment that gets given if you do come back and touch the ball. If you do come back without permission and touch the ball, so it happens often. Player asks you to go off. You tell the player, please tell me when you're back. And it happens so many times that plays in plays in progress, and then suddenly you see, oh, yes, let's say Samantha's back. Then you ask your colleague, do you know that Samantha's back? Your colleague just shrugged his or her shoulders. No, I didn't know Samantha's back. Happens so often. So what I do in those instances, I instead of waiting for Samantha to touch the ball and to punish her with the punishment for player returning without permission. So what I do is, if I do see Samantha back, but she hasn't touched the ball yet, I walk up to her and I educate her. I say, Sam, remember I asked you to let me know when you're back. Why is that important? Firstly, I need to calculate your penalty time. I don't know now when you're back. You could have been back half an hour ago. But seeing that I only seeing you now, from this moment onwards, I'm going to make a note that this is when you're back. Yes, unfortunately, I told you need to let me know. Also, there's quite a stiff punishment for if a player comes back and not informing the umpire. That punishment is 5 penalty runs, runs to count, ball not to count as one for the over. I'm sure your captain is not going to be too happy with you if the umpire start dishing out that punishment. So practically, that's how I handle it. I try to if I do pick it up, I try to educate the players, teach them the law, because most of them don't know the law. But there's nothing in the law that speaks about helping players, educating them. If you want to apply the law, they didn't inform you, and as soon as they touch it, you can apply the law. Renier, I hope I've answered your question. If not, when we do have Q&A, you can ask again or write in the chat box again if I didn't ask your question. So Sandeep is asking 5 wickets down. Does it include the retirement of a batter? So Sandeep, all you need to ask yourself is the side 5 wickets down? For the purpose of this course, we're still applying the laws of cricket. There are playing conditions that handle when a batter do retire. I'm not going to cover what the playing condition say, but the purpose of this particular course, we're covering the laws of cricket, and the laws of cricket allows for a batter to retire. If it is through injury or illness, they can come back later at the fall of a wicket. If it's not through injury or illness, they need the permission of the opposing captain. But yeah, they need to be 5 wickets down for the player to bat if he or she still owes penalty time. But that is the law. Playing condition will handle this differently, because in playing condition, the retirement of a batter is seen as a wicket, but I'm not going to go into that now. I hope I answered your question, Sandeep.
Yeah, I did not have that as a question though, as a comment about the 5 wicket down and when the other batter to be get permitted to bat if he has not yet completed his penalty time serving.
Okay, sorry, I thought it was a question.
No, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sandeep. Thanks for your comment. Vikram, 2 examples for penalty time, both mention injuries. Doesn't that then come under the scenario penalty time not to be incurred? So Vikram, when penalty time not to be incurred, they want, and let's leave the whole acceptable reason, let's put that aside. They want there to be an external blow of Vikram, and it needs to happen while play in progress and on the field uh, um, of play. And if there is an external blow, in that case, penalty time not to be incurred. Any other injuries, and we call it in cricket internal injuries like groin, like hammy, back spasms. Those are just three examples of yes, they are injuries, but they seen as internal injuries. They're not seen as external blows that happen. Penalty time needs to be served for those type of injuries. You only don't have to serve any penalty time if there was an external blow that happened, then no penalty time to be incurred. Next question is Vikram. There is a video. Vikram, I'll come back to your video. Let's just go through the rest of the chat box. Just remind me to get back, if I do forget, to get back to your video. Just to see, I'm going down the chat box. And T is asking me a question. Is it possible to get the previous recording of this session? Oh, well, yes, and T. It's on our YouTube channel, Western Province Cricket Umpires Association. We do have a YouTube channel. Tom also sends out emails with the links on those emails of the previous the recordings. So Santi, do me a favor, put your email address in the chat box. So what I'll do is, I know Tom sends those emails out. I'm not sure if you're part of the list, and on those emails are the links to these previous lectures. That's the one way to get the recordings. The other way is go to our YouTube channel. It's WPCUA. At the end, I'll put a link. To our YouTube channel, and then, or if someone can put a link to our YouTube channel in the chat box for Nti to access. No, Nomula, in movement by fielders, why is it other than close fielders? What happens if a close fielders move? So Namula, the law, when it comes to close fielders, here we're referring to short leg under the helmet, close, silly point, close to the batter. As long as it's close, so the law wants those close fielders, they're not allowed to move. They're not allowed to walk in. If you're close fielder, you need to stand still. You're not allowed to move. So if we do see a close fielder moving, we can go to unfair movement. Law does not want close fielders to be moving. They need to be stationary at all time. It's your outer fielders that's allowed to let's say walk in with the bowler, but your close in fielders needs to stand still. Mikey, you've got a wicketkeeper question. Let's have a look at it. A wicketkeeper willfully discards gloves to field an inside edge. After fielding, turns and throws towards the stumps, run out the batter, attempting a quick single. Ball hits glove lying on the ground before knocking the bells off. Dead ball and 5 runs, plus in the runs completed, plus in progress. So yes, Mikey, this is, and the key word that you used here is the keeper willfully discarded the gloves. Now one of the gloves is lying on the floor. So now the law sees this as soon as the ball makes contact with that glove, it's seen in the law as illegal fielding. And the punishment for illegal fielding is, so as soon as the ball touches the um, the ball automatically becomes dead, and anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So if it did ricochet from the glove onto the stumps, and let's say the batter short of the ground, that run out will not count. Because why? The ball is automatically dead as soon as the ball hits the helmet, and anything that happens after that is irrelevant. So further on, Mikey, now we know it's illegal fielding. So the ball automatically became dead when the ball hit the helmet. So what are the punishment? A ball dead, 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Ball not to count as one for the over. Runs completed, Mikey, to be scored, including the run in progress if they crossed, Mikey. So you need to, your scenario, don't say whether they crossed or not, but if there was a runs completed, those will also be added. If the run that they were busy with, if they crossed when the ball hit the glove, that run also to count. If they didn't cross, that run will not count. It will then only be the completed runs and the 5 penalty runs. So Manath was asking, what is the maximum number of runs a batsman can score from a legal delivery? The so boundary 6, that's your maximum of the bat, but then some can be penalties as well. There can be a no ball. There can be penalty runs given for whatever reason. So just depending on what other penalties there are. So it can differ from situation to the situation, but in terms of maximum runs of the bat, that is 6. Then penalty runs also can then be depending on what type of penalties, can be no ball, can be other type of penalty runs under law 41. And then also, Somanath, you can have instances where overthrows happen, and where they let's say they they've they've come they completed 5 runs and they're busy with the 6th run, or they've completed 7 runs and they're busy with the 8th run, and then there's a side the stumps and it misses the stumps, and they cross at the instant of the throw, and the ball then goes over the boundary. Now you can also, because of that overthrows, they've completed 8 runs, they've crossed at the instant of the throw because they're busy with their 9th run, so 9 plus 4 is 13 runs. So those are just examples of this quite many options of many runs that you can score of a legal ball. Overthrows, penalty runs, boundary 6. I hope I answered your question, Sumanath. If not, let me know, or when I ask me the question when I get to Q&A, or put another question in the chat box. Brad's got a question. Who is run out? So striker hits the ball. Striker calls for a run. Non-striker attempts to run, but sends striker back. Both striker and non-striker end up at the non-striker's end. When wicket is broken at the striker's end, who is out? So Bradley, difficult without a video to be able to tell you who is out. You need to look at who was in that particular ground first. Whoever was there first, that is their ground. It belongs to them. Whoever joined them afterwards, the other ground is their ground. So you need to look at who was first at the bowler's end. Whoever was there first, that is their ground. If it was the non-striker that was there first and the striker joined him or her later, It stays the non-striker's ground. If the non-striker left it and the striker ran and the striker made that ground first at the bowler's end, it will now be the striker's ground, even if the non-striker later joins them. So difficult to answer you without looking at a video or giving me more info. You need to tell me who was in that ground first. If striker, non-striker will be out. If non-striker, striker will be out. So Nti, Mike Williams was kind enough to put our YouTube channel in the chat box. So if you can click on our YouTube channel, you will find all the videos on our YouTube channel, not just for this particular lecture. There's many other videos on our educational videos on our channel. Feel free to subscribe and look at our videos. Nomula speaks about external blow during practice in a schedule break. Do they incur penalty time? Nomula, the conditions that's in place when it comes to penalty time not to be incurred for an external blow, it needs to happen on the field of play. That's the first condition. And the second condition, while play is in progress. So both those conditions needs to be met, and obviously it needs to be an external blow. So if that is the case, no penalty time to be incurred. So your example is the external blow happen, let's say during a lunch interval or a tea interval, because you mentioned a scheduled break. So unfortunately in this instance, Namula, because the external blow happened during a scheduled break, i.e. not during playing time, unfortunately, this player will have to serve penalty time. Okay, Somanath, thanks, Mike. Somanath, I wanted to know if there's a limit to how many runs a batter can score. Somanath, there's no limit if, I mean, it's a hypothetical scenario. If a batter can run 50 runs while the ball is still in play, that batter can score 50 runs with that single ball. So it just depends on the ball, on the scenario, on if there are any penalty runs, are there any overthrows. Yeah, there's no limit, Sumanath. There's no thing that says it can be a max of only 6. Lot of people think, yeah, it can only max 6. Not necessarily. As I said, you can run more than 6. There can be overthrows where you can get more than 6. So just depend on the situation. Okay, Suranga, thank you for your comment. You're welcome. Eugene, all good. I don't see any further comments in the chat box. I will open the floor now for Q&A. Floor is open. Any questions, feel free to ask. And once we're done with the Q&A, we're going to then have a look at, I think it's Vikram that posted a video. We'll go have a look at that video. But before we get there, any questions?
Hi, Abdullah. I do have a question. Firstly, good evening or good day to everyone.
Yeah,
I wanted to find out, right? A bowler delivers the ball and it doesn't land, like it doesn't pitch on the strip that we are playing on, and the batter just quickly, before you even call dead ball, right? You've already signaled no ball. Before you signal dead ball, the batter moves out of the pitch and tries to hit it over for a boundary. Whatever. Can I now say, hey, hold on, guys, let's not let's not allow for those runs. Let me call it dead ball. Can I do that? Because there's always like a player who maybe the other captain has an idea of the rules and they're like, how come you're giving those runs when it's dead? Can I cancel the runs still?
Superior, yes, 99% these things happen quick, and sometimes the call of dead ball is a bit delayed, but the law don't want batters to be leaving the pitch to play at the ball. So if it happens quick and they leave the pitch and hit the ball, you can still go, guys. Sorry, players are not allowed to leave the pitch. Dead ball, thank you. Those runs not to count.
Thank you for that, man.
You're welcome. Somanath, unmute your mic and ask the question.
Sir, actually, I am a little slow in English. Sir, in a division game, I saw a situation, I faced a situation. One opener batsman batting 30 minutes. After then he feel the illness. Then he retired and go back. After 5 wicket down, he came back for batting. After that, after batting 10 minutes, he again go back. Again, he feel the illness and go back. After 6 wicket down, he again come to bat. I want to know, law allow this?
Yeah, technically, this if a player is, I mean, if a batter is injured, so why did he go off? Because of injury. If he, I mean, the law tells us
not
yes. The law says a batter is allowed if they are injured or ill, they are allowed to retire the innings and to go off to get treatment. So if a batter go off, come back on, get sick again, go back. But I mean, after the second or third time, I would actually go. I would say batter. I mean, you either are you on or off. I would then intervene, saying, I mean, you can't be coming on, off, on, off. If you're sick, you're sick. Then rather wait, come back, come back, come to bed later on. But you coming on, off. Yeah, that's not on.
how many times I can allow him?
Yeah, there's no. According to the law tell us if a batter is injured or ill, the law allows for a retirement. No problem with it. So there's no number in the law. You just need as umpire to manage it. If you see it's getting ridiculous, the batter goes off, wicket falls, the batter comes on, and then a few minutes later goes off again, come back next time, off again. You need to manage it by saying, a batter, you coming on, off, please. You rather stay off, let the other get treatment, wait till you completely, recover, then come to bat. But you coming on, off, that's, yeah, it's just trying to manage it. But there's nothing in the law that says 2 times, you allow it 3 times or 4 times or 10 times. There's no number. If you want to really be technical, batter can go off and on as long as you're happy that they are injured or ill. They can go off and on as many as they can, but you definitely need to manage that as an umpire and tell the batter, stay off, get treatment, but this on and off is not going to work.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, Somanath?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, Vikram P, you comment about people are scoring 70 runs of a single ball. I've heard of those cases. I haven't seen any, you know, uh, I've just heard about them. Love to know how they scored 70 runs of a single ball. If they ran the 70, where was the ball? Was it down a hole? I don't know. But I've heard that back in the day there was lots of run scores of single balls. I've heard those cases, but I haven't actually seen a scorebook or how those runs were accumulated, whether it was ran or how it was done. Have to be have to be they run those runs because it can't be boundaries. Okay, next one, Zaid. Spinner bowling. The ball pitches off the pitch. However, the spin brings it back onto the pitch and end up hitting the wicket. What happens next? So, Zaid, this is exactly why the law was brought in. As soon as the ball pitches off the pitch, what must the umpire do? Umpire needs to call and signal no ball. So in your scenario, ball pitching off the pitch, you'll call and signal no ball. So even if it spins, come back and hit the wickets, the bowler will then not be out because you cannot be bowled with a no ball. But that's exactly why this law was brought in. Before this law was brought in, and this happened to me quite a few times. In my playing days, I started playing on those synthetic pitches, those green synthetic pitches. So you'll find on the home field that I played on, there was just one strip, one synthetic pitch, and there was grass next to the pitch. So I was bowled on more than one occasion where the ball landed on the grass, then spun back and hit the wicket. This is now before this law was brought in. Yeah, I saw the ball hit the wicket. I was bowled. I put my bat under my arm and left the field. But this law was specifically brought in for those things. It's not just cricket. I mean, you cannot be bowling a ball off the pitch and then suddenly it hits, whether it's a grass patch or hits a stone and then comes back and hits your wicket and you'll be out bowled. I don't see any more questions in the chat box. I do see a hand. Nomola, the floor is yours.
Hi, Abdullah.
Hello.
Actually, I wanted to ask this question during the last lecture, but I couldn't due to some network
Yeah.
issues. This is related to Law 19 boundary, specifically willful act of a fielder. We've seen an example of Sehwag deliberately pushing the ball into the boundary to make the tail ender face the next over. I have another scenario from 2011 between England and India, where Dhoni is on strike for the last ball of the over. He placed the ball towards the cover fielder. The fielder was Peterson, and he deliberately misses the ball so that it goes to the boundary. And Srishant is at the other end, so that he faces the next over. And India are 9 down, the last batting pair. So I did search for the video, but I couldn't find. All I could find was a cricket post commentary. I am sharing.
Nomola, you still there? Did we lose? Did I lose?
Sorry.
So your question is, how do we handle that scenario where Peterson left the ball and it went over the boundary?
Yeah.
So yeah, so Namola, you can only apply law 19.8, the willful act of a fielder, if there's been an act by the fielder, like Sehwag, that kicked the ball over the boundary, or someone throws the ball over the boundary, then you'll apply law 19.8, where the boundary to count, the completed the runs to count, including the run that they scored at the instant of the act. But in Peterson's case, because there was no contact, and he let the ball go over the boundary, nothing we can do. We cannot apply law 19.8 because there's been no willful act that took place. He left the ball, but he didn't touch the ball. So because of not touching it, you cannot apply 19.8. So that would just be a boundary 4, and if it's the last ball of the over, then the batter that scored the 4 will be at the non-strikers end. Did I answer your question, Amola?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, this I'm reading your scenario. Yeah, it's unfortunately nothing we can do. Peterson knew what he was doing. He didn't kick it. He didn't touch it. Yeah, he just left it. Boundary 4. Yeah, we cannot apply 19.8. Willful act. Not in this case. There needs to be a touch. There needs to be a kick or throw. If I don't see any more hands, there's no more questions in the chat box. I can remember Vikram did put something in the chat box. Let's see if I can open. Vikram, just give me a second. I hope you're still on the call. You did put a video in. I'm going to try to share that video. I hope I can. Just give me a second. I'm trying to play a link that Vikram put in the chat box. I'm trying to see if I can open the video. No, I'm not able to open the video. But Vikram, I can remember that incident. I saw it live actually, and I think you're referring to the I think it was sunglasses that came off Andrew Strauss. I think is that incident. And yes, because it was accidental, it's not considered illegal fielding. That sunglasses came off accidentally. And as soon as it's accidental, any equipment that came off accidental, yeah, it does not get considered as illegal fielding. There's more questions in the chat box. Sumanath, can a batsman make a shot from behind the wicket? No, not possible. Why? The law wants the batter to remain at all times on the pitch. So what is the pitch? The pitch's width is 3.05 meters. So the batter needs to have some part of the person on the pitch. If the moment they go off the pitch, the umpire needs to win by calling and signaling dead ball. So that's the width of the pitch, 3.05. The length of the pitch is 20.12 meters. So the length of the pitch is from the one bowling crease to the other bowling crease. So from one stump to the other stump. As soon as the batter goes behind the wicket, that means the batter is now off the pitch in terms of behind the wicket. And the umpire also needs to intervene by calling and signaling dead ball. So you're not allowed to go sideways, 3.05. If you're off the pitch, dead ball. If you're behind the pitch, also dead ball. Prof. Atik, I don't understand your question. You speak about bat and pad is not out. If reverse scenario occurs, is it out, i.e. ball hitting pad, then bat, is it out? Are you referring to LBW or is it the cats? Prof, if it's LBW, so if it hits pad, then bat, then you can consider the LBW. But there's other factors that you also need to consider. So I see you confirm is LBW. So yes, if it is pad first, then you can consider the LBW. But there's other factors that you also need to consider. Impact, was it between wicket and wicket, and then would it have gone on to hit the wicket? So yes, definitely a candidate if it hits pad first.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Abdullah. Yeah, it should be in line. That is true. Thank you.
You're welcome, Prof. I don't see any further comments, questions. If there's no other hands, I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much for this evening. We'll be back on Thursday evening, 1800 hours South African time. Tom will post the recording of this session on our YouTube channel tomorrow, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Thursday, 1800 hours SA time. I should have my batting partner back on Thursday. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Goodbye, everyone.